Hey, how's it going, friend? And today I want to talk about how to run meetings effectively, because if you can't run effective and good meetings, it's going to make a lot of other things in your youth ministry much more difficult than they need to be or than they should be. The key, I think, the tucked away back pocket secret of how to cast vision well, how to get your leaders on board with what you're doing, how to mobilize students, how to make sure everyone is on board with the mission. I think a lot of ways it traces all the way back to running and using and doing meetings effectively. So it's a vital part that we don't tend to think about, but it plays such a huge role. So I want to give you 4 things on how to run meetings effectively and how to do them well. First thing I would say is you have to have an agenda. You need an agenda for pretty much every single meeting you're going to have. So let's say you have a meeting with 10 of your leaders if you have a leadership team, and you have no agenda. Either the meeting is going to last for 15 minutes because everyone's like, well, what do you want to talk about? What should we do? What should we not do? And either it's going to last 15 minutes because everyone's like, I don't know, I think everything's good or whatever. Or it's going to last about 4.5 hours and you're just going to chase 15,000 little rabbit trails and rabbit holes. Either end, not good, because the single most valuable thing your leaders possess and have in what you have is your time. Time is the most costly resource of any of your volunteers and of yourself. And so coming to a meeting, putting on a meeting without an agenda is kind of to waste people's time, which is their most valuable asset. So you need to have an agenda for the things that you're going to go over in that meeting. Now, a quick little tip that I think is really helpful is I keep my meetings at most to 4 things. There's some stat or statistic from a mentor of mine that told me that people can only remember up to 4 things at a time. And so I've kind of kept that little thing in my pocket that I don't put anything more than 4 big meeting items. So if there's 4 big things that we need to talk about, that's my limit. Because if you say too much and go over too much, you've effectively gone over nothing. People cannot remember 10 key line items from this big meeting. They're gonna remember about 4. That's about the maximum. You might be able to push 5, whatever, but I keep it at 4, so that's why there's 4 things on this list. So have an agenda. That's first. Second one, and this one for the peacemakers out there that don't like, or that want to include everybody and that don't like pushing people away, this one's kind of hard, and is that only involve those that need to be involved in the meeting. Not every single meeting needs to be with every single person that could be considered on your leadership team. Some meetings are just, hey, let's get 3 people. Some meetings, if your team is large enough, let's get 10 people. Some meetings are everybody. Some meetings are just a few. Because again, time is the most valuable asset your leaders possess. Nothing costs more to them than their time. And we have to learn how to respect their time and to utilize it well, because they're already sacrificing for the Wednesdays, Sundays, whatever night that you meet. You need to make sure that you only involve people that you need that are involved in the meeting. Because you think about it like this, every so often you're going to find yourself in a meeting and you get through 2 hours of a meeting and only to realize at the end, none of that applied to me, and so this felt like 2 hours of waste of time because nothing applied to me at all. It's a really crappy feeling, and so just remember that on their end, will they feel like, oh wow, I was in a 2-hour meeting and none of it applied to me. Now, there's a little bit of a nuance to this, because for some people, they do want to be involved in those meetings because they want to know what's happening, and if sometimes, and it's kind of a judgment thing, sometimes it's good to just involve them because they want to be there. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you have a sleeper where it's like you didn't think they needed to be involved in it because they didn't have anything really to put into this particular area, but then you realize, wow, they actually had some insights and they had some things that actually could go towards it, or the other way around. And so there's a lot of nuance to this, but I think for the most part, don't just assume that any big meeting means every single person has to be involved. Only put the people that need to be involved in that meeting. And I know for some people, you feel like you're going to hurt other people's feelings. I would much rather not waste people's time than feel like I have to include them. So first off is have an agenda. Second is only involve those who need to be involved. Third, I would say, is kind of frequency and routine. I think it's really important for you to have some sort of amount of frequency or routine to your meetings with your leaders. And this one I think applies to all of your leaders, but I think at the bare minimum, you need at least a quarterly meeting with your whole team. Once every quarter, meet with your entire team. If you can do every month or if you need to do every month, it kind of depends on the rhythm and how active, how many things you have going on, how big your team is, how many people are paid, if anybody's paid. It all kind of depends and varies on the size and a bunch of different things, but I would say at the very least, make sure there's one meeting every single quarter because you need times for the whole team to come together and to know where are we going, what's been happening, what do we like, what we not like, where are we trying to go, all that sort of thing. So at least quarterly. And I would say it's a really good idea to have some sort of a meeting every time you gather for a service. So on Wednesday night, that's our youth service, and our service starts at 7, but all of our leaders meet at 6, and the first thing we do is some pre-service prayer, and then we go over some things for the night to make sure various little things are in place for the night, but also I use that as a time to talk about, hey, here's the sermon series idea, what do you guys think? And I use those kind of as little pockets to have little meetings to kind of keep everybody in on things, to do leadership lessons. There's a variety of things I do, but at least as a leadership team, all of us are meeting together weekly before the service, but we do big leader meetings at least once every single quarter to really go over big picture things of here's this ministry and how are we running it, what's working well, what's not working well, etc., etc., etc. So think of a frequency and think of a routine that would work for you in your context based on your team size, all that sort of stuff, but make sure there's frequency to it and make sure that there is routine to it. So that's 3. Last one is probably the most vital part of this. I know I said that at the beginning, but probably the most vital part about having a meeting is each person needs an action step. They need a to-do. Nothing's worse than coming to a meeting and it's just about here's all this stuff going on and then you end up with nothing to do and then it feels like this could have been an email. You know, we all know those feelings. Maybe if we've worked an office job or a corporate job, we all know the feeling of like, oh, this meeting could have just been an email. So people need an action step. They need something to do. And so I make sure that at the end of our meetings, the very last thing we do is we go over, okay, what is everybody doing? What are you doing? What is this area doing? How are we shifting this? And what's going to be the to-dos from this meeting moving forward? So 4 things: have an agenda, only involve those who need to be involved. You need frequency and routine, and each person needs a to-do or an action step for this meeting. So hopefully these are some things that'll help you in your next meetings in order to make them a little bit more effective and to run well, and so that you can ultimately cast vision well, that you can put people on mission well, that you can mobilize students, mobilize leaders, and that you can do what you do much more effectively and much more efficiently. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys whenever the next video rolls around. So peace.